It is my joy to welcome you in Pastor's Wife Corner. The objective of this program is to encourage you, women, in the ministry to fulfill their unique part in God's plan of redemption. We will talk about women here in the Bible and get lessons to learn. So by this time, we'll talk about Rebecca's nursemaid, Deborah, in the Bible. So there are two notable women named Deborah in the Bible. One is Deborah, the judge, which was we tackled already, and the other is Deborah, the nurse. This latter Deborah is mentioned twice in the Old Testament. In Genesis chapter 24 verse 59 says, now, Deborah, Rebecca's nurse, died on her way along with her nurse and Abraham's servant and his men. And in Genesis chapter 35, verse 8, says, now, Deborah, Rebecca's nurse, died and was buried under the oak outside Bethel. So it was named Alon Bakos. Deborah was the nursemaid of Rebekah, the wife of Abraham's son, Isaac, and she was most likely the nursemaid of Esau and Jacob, Isaac and Rebekah's children. Big note. Genesis is so rich with the story of God's people, and yet we often forget that more than those mentioned, most often were affected by the events that occurred. Deborah, as Rebecca's nursemaid, went wherever Rebecca went. So she as well left her familiar family and home to traverse to a strange new land, spent her whole life, and remained single to took good care of Rebecca and probably taking care of Rebecca's children until she died. For sure, Deborah loved Rebecca and Rebecca's family, and in return, Jacob's family loved her also, because Deborah was buried under the oak of weeping, where Jacob's family lamented with sadness and tears when Deborah was gone. Lesson: women, one of the great lessons learned from looking at some of these lesser known women in the Bible is that God is not only sees the great things in our lives, but He sees the small things as well. Sometimes we could feel like what we are doing is trivial or going unnoticed. But never mind that. If what we are doing is for God's glory, it holds great importance. Whether washing dishes or completing a homework assignment or babysitting, bring the glory of God into your commonplace duty, as Deborah did in her duty as a nursemaid. Because no work is insignificant. All labor that uplift humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. Deborah was so important in the eyes of God to include her name in the book of Genesis. But how about you? Who are we in the eyes of the world? Who are we in the eyes of God? Most of us will live and die without knowing our purpose in this world, even knowing we existed. To the world, we are just another person. And yet, in the eyes of God, we are important. God knows every one of us by name. He sees the struggles in our lives and knows the thoughts and intents of our hearts. In the end, it is our hearts that make us acceptable in the eyes of God. When we come to Christ, confess our sins, and ask Him to become the Lord of our lives, our hearts are changed. If that confession was genuine, God knows it. if it was just a temporary stop in the road of life, having no real effect upon us. God knows that as well. Becoming a believer is not just a decision we make, but rather it is a total change of our heart and lives. God, the God who created the universe, has a relationship with us through Christ. When we call upon Him, He hears us. When we go through times of great difficulty, He walks beside us. God goes with us through every hill and valley of life. What an amazing God we serve. Indeed, I am a pastor's wife. Hope to see you again in the next program. God bless your heart.